Are you able to slice it up as your LinkedIn?
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Oh, sorry,
That's fine.
I haven't logged into it since then. It's good not me to log in. Different?
Yeah, just
Ah,
fine.
right.
Right.
Right, so once we grapple with technology, hopefully the slides should be coming up onto people's screens. That's we need to at least invest in some faster. Slides up on screens. Because you've got an active display. Right. Excellent, yes, that'd be right, because I am here. So, and hopefully these should now appear on screen. If we can change that into slide.
That'll just see the whole thing.
Oh, well, yeah, as long as everybody can see that on the screen. If anybody can't see it, if you could share it now, that'd be really helpful. And then we'll, if not, we'll just carry on and assume the technology is working. Okay, thanks very much. So the purpose of this session is to I've got some.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, the purpose of this session is to inform members and also officers that will attend the investment committee about the role of the committee and the sort of things that will be considered on there, and the responsibilities really in relation to decision making as well of the investment committee, and the information that will go to back up the reports that come to investment committee in order to support that decision making. So just going through the details of that rather than having to go through that for the first meeting, because we're where we haven't had the first meeting of the committee yet. So if we look at the role of the investment committee, this moves forward. Sorry, we're trying to find out which one moves the slides ahead.
That one you want, so you want.
That one, please. Yes. If we look at the governance arrangements then for the investment committees, you can see there how it fits into the overall framework for the governance for this combined authority. So we have the combined authority board sitting there in the middle, and all the various committees around that, whether that's the regulatory committees of audit and governance committee, and overview and scrutiny. We've got the various thematic committees which play a key part when we look at developing some of the projects as part of this process, such as the Transport and Infrastructure Committee, Environment and Sustainable Committee, and the Skills and Employment Committee. We've got the Business and Advisory body, which is the Business Board. And then we've got the Investment and Operational Committee. So we've got the HR Committee, but the other one that we've now got is the Investment Committee. Did used to previously have one, which was like the Shareholder Board, but that's now ceased. And we now have the Investment Committee with delegated powers from the Combined Authority Board. To the right of the slide, you can see there's an area there where it does set out about the role of the Investment Committee in relation to approving investment decisions and overseeing commercial activity. But we'll look at the more detail of that as we go through these slides. But that just shows you where it sits in that framework. So if we go on to the next slide. Lovely. So this is the a lot of detail on this, but as I say, we'll go through some of this throughout, but we can share the set of slides with you as well. and that will give you this background information then to the roles of the investment committee. So again, its purpose, we will go into in more detail as we go through this. And we spoke about its ability to make investment decisions and oversee shareholdings and other commercial activities of the combined authority. When we look at its membership and voting, the membership consists of the lead member of the investment and economic growth, which I believe will be the chair as well of the committee, and then representatives from the constituent authority, of which there are 7. The business board chair and also 2 business board representatives, and we can co-opt in around 3 independent reps, if you like, from the small businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises to assisting people.
Subject matter.
Oh, sorry. Subject matter experts. There's me using my wrong 3-letter acronyms for that one. Subject matter experts as opposed to small and medium enterprises, to bring into the membership as well at the time. The rules are down there as well for the voting. So only the members of the committee are entitled to vote, and presumably any substitutes that attend that are named substitutes on their behalf will also be able to attend and vote in their absence. Any matters are to be decided by a consensus, and where that's not possible, there are provisions that will apply in those instances. And if the vote is tied, then it is deemed unsuccessful. For delegated authority, it mentions there about approving funding decisions. The funding decisions it can approve are between £1 million and up to 5 million when it comes to investments. Anything over 5 million goes on to the combined authority board, and it's requested that the investment committee make those recommendations onto the board, and anything under £1 million is able to be approved by the chief executive through the investment panel. But anything the investment panel approves will obviously be forwarded on to be noted by the investment committee as well. So you will have full oversight of all the investments, whether that's noting them, approving them, or recommending them on to the board, which I think is quite critical that the committee does have that full oversight. And then within that, there are functions that are staff related that support into the investment committee, and we will discuss those in a little bit as we go through the slides. But I think the key things here that we do put note on the right hand side of this slide, the key takeaways, is that it will be supported by the investment panel, which consists of officers of the combined authority, essentially the leadership team of the combined authority, the officers, the corporate management team, and also supported then as well by subject matter experts in this instance, whether that's finance, legal, etc., in order to support that decision making. As I mentioned earlier, the investment committee does have that authority to make decisions on behalf of the combined authority up to that £5 million limit, and also in relation to commercial activities. And it also will have a role to monitor as well and review all of the major projects so that they are delivered and developed in line with what we've working around the risk management framework, which has been approved as well through the CA mechanism. I say, if anybody's got any questions, obviously feel free to let me know what questions you have, and we'll respond to them. So the next thing we're going to look at is the responsibilities. Oh, sorry. Somebody have a question, comment? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Is like the main board and the other committees, does it require the agreement of both the representatives from Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough for certain decisions? Is the first question. And the second one is,
for instance, in transport, is that what you're referring to specifically for that one?
it may well be, yes.
But
because I sit on the Transport and Infrastructure Committee anyway. But the second one is does that you would would the things like the Transport and Infrastructure Committee, the Skills Committee, those would they still make decisions to procure something, and it then goes to the Investment Committee for them to basically organize it is the wrong word, but if you know what I mean, they procure it.
The decision. Yeah, I'll ask Robert to confirm around the, as I say, I think the voting is each member has one vote, and there is nothing that says that this has been told expected sign up from the transport related authorities or any other specific authority, unless colleagues here in governance, Robert, contradicts that. I think that's my understanding of how the committee operates for that. With regard to the second point that you raised, the thematic groups do have a role to play, but they're more about looking at the concept that are being raised, about trying to approve the general theme of the projects going forward. So therefore, that they would be part of what gets recommended on for decision making, but ultimately they're not the decision making body to make the investment. That decision will sit with the investment committee or the investment panel or whatever it is that is that. So for instance, if you look at climate, the thematic group for climate, the Environmental STEM Communities Committee will have a programme of investment that may be a couple of £1 million, and they may have discussions about where they'd like to see that investment go, and business cases, etc., will be worked up. But the decision on whether they're finally invested in will sit with the investment panel, the investment committee or board, depending on the size of the investment. And we do have a slide later on that does go through this detail. But I think it is a good point to raise about where those committees do sit. So if we look about the responsibilities then in relation to the corporate shareholders, the investment committee, and these responsibilities, by the way, are set out within the combined authorities constitution around the responsibilities of the investment committee in relation to the combined authority responsibilities of the corporate shareholder. So the first one is to advise and make decisions in line with delegated authority, and that's on behalf of the mayor and the combined authority board. It exercises the responsibilities for the combined authority's functions as a corporate shareholder, because what we'll go on to next is about whether the combined authority do hold those shareholdings. And that's about whether it is for a company or a group of companies and their role in representing the combined authority as a shareholder representative on the meetings of that company. But also looking at it from an oversight perspective around what the various policies, etc., that we have and established for the review of these subsidiary companies, and that we've got that clear oversight of these. I know this is an area, for instance, that our Audit and Governance Committee have been particularly interested in, that we do have a clear oversight of the companies and any shareholder responsibilities that we have as the combined authority. So there is a full transparency around that. And then that constant review to see are we within the most effective vehicle to deliver these things through that route, and whether there are viable alternative models. So there does need to be some form of annual or otherwise regular review of these to see if this model is still appropriate for the purposes that we are delivering this. I could just move that on to. Yeah, thank you. And it just mentions there that over time, the combined authority, as I'm sure you're aware, has provided financial support to a number of small companies and other enterprises, whether that's loans or grants. You know, we might have a growth fund grant coming in previously. You know, we had things like Growing Places Fund, etc., that came in previously, and they could be given out as grants to small and medium-sized enterprises or other organisations, or they could have gone out as loans and recycled funds to come back in as loans to then go out again. But this isn't. The main consideration is when it talks about the commercial aspects is about where we've got that shareholding interest in a company. If we are investing in terms of loans and grants, they may come through the investment committee, depending upon the scale of it, for approval. But it's really this one, the next set I'm going to talk about is where we've got the shareholdings for that responsibility. So on the next slide, you can see where we have the major shareholdings as the combined authority. The first two are with Peterborough, and this is with the ARU Peterborough, the University in Peterborough, and they're known to us as Propco 1 and Propco 2, but their full names are the Peterborough HE Property Company Limited and the Peterborough Research and Development Property Company Limited. And our share percentages are shown on the slide there. And you can also see the control that we have within each of those organisations about how many directors are appointed by the combined authority onto the board of those organisations. And then also the scale of the equity that we have in each. And as you can see, it varies considerably, but the most significant there are listed at the top, which is the Propco 1 and 2 and the Business Growth Company. On the Business Growth Company Limited, those services actually were transferred back to the combined authority in December 2023. So we're now working through the winding up of that company and going through the legal arrangements for that to ensure that the company is wound up fully. The other areas that we've got investments in is Angle Holdings Limited, which is a wholly owned subsidiary, which is only owned by the combined authority. But they haven't traded in June and July 24, and the companies have resolved to dissolve as well this company in agreement with the combined authority. There's the Illumina accelerator programme, which the combined authority holds 9 future equity agreements, and when they mature we will become a minor shareholder in the startup companies, and there will be 5 agreements which where we do have 5 of those agreements so far have become equity. And essentially the combined authority doesn't really have any controlling interest in that. It is just a minor shareholding that it does have. And then there is a fund managed by Start Codon, which invests in life sciences and healthcare startups. That's a managed fund, so the combined authority has limited control of that. So once money goes in, it's managed elsewhere. The fund is to ensure that the support is given out and considered as part of that. The fund will essentially invest until all the resources have been exhausted, or until 2025, which is the latest date by which we can do those investments. And then after that, there will be a 5-year de-investment period, so that the fund liquidates its holdings and any return proceeds will go back to the investors. More recently, the Combined Authority Board set up a business growth and social impact fund of £10 million. Now, this has been split into 2 work streams, and the 2 main will sit in the account for the entirety of the 10 million. The main elements that will be going out via that is 7.1 million to be invested in a special purpose vehicle set up with an organisation called FSC, and they will be responsible for developing the pipeline of projects and other investments from them, which will either be debt or equity related. So that is either shareholdings or loans going out to the organisations, and of around somewhere between 100 to £500,000. And there will be the principles have been approved and reviewed as part of this. On top of that, there will be collaboration with an organisation called Alia. I just get these names. 1.9 million, and again, that's loans or grants up to £75,000 to third sector businesses. Both of these schemes or arrangements will be coming back, will be on the future plan coming back to the Combined Authority Board to provide an update on that. So there will be a further paper on this and those two schemes going back to Combined Authority Board. Mentioned earlier, we did talk about the Business Growth Company, and that has made a small equity investments of 1.8 million across 9 companies as part of the business plan. As I mentioned, and that will be being wound up as we go through. So that's the shareholding. So there aren't, if you look across all the combined authorities, there's probably a more significant number. But it is important though that we do ensure there is good governance and oversight of this area as we move forward, and it is transparent and reported appropriately. So that is working with the investment committee to do that. And as I say, we'll also be working with audit and governance to ensure that their awareness too of the arrangements for this. When we're looking about the investment in certain projects or schemes, then that is supported to help that decision take place through an arrangement called the Single Assurance Framework, which has been set up as part of the improvement programme with the part of the best value notice, to be honest, but it was put in there to support that, and it's now developed an assurance framework that is considered good practice by it's MHDLG now, I think officially. It was previously DLUG, MHDLG, in order to support investments into projects. So the board approved this assurance framework back in September 2023. There's a lot of work gone into develop the framework and also to ensure that that is fully understood through the Combined Authority and the constituent councils that are partners to this, because obviously they have a critical role to play in that. Templates have been developed, processes, ways of working, etc., to get the staff up and running, and also communicated out to colleagues and training sessions, etc., being run for that. So the committee meeting will be the first formal step in doing that, and the first formal committee meeting will be in August, and that will be using the SAF in order to inform the business cases for investment or investment proposals that come forward. So we thought it was really important to take you through that process. So I think I've gone over quite a few of these, bear them in mind a while, but I'll just repeat them. That it is to make sure that the investment decisions do support the delivery of the Combined Authority strategy and its key priorities within that, and that we look about the outcomes that we're getting, and those outcomes are understood and they're being monitored and reported against, and then we can see the real impact that these projects are having. As I mentioned, improvement programme, robust governance is critical. You know, we shouldn't be spending any money really without knowing exactly what we're spending it on, how much it's going to be, how likely it's going to take to get something delivered, and also any risks associated with that and what the benefits we're going to get out of it. So that governance process for investment of public money is critical throughout this. And also, as mentioned before, about working with other partners to do this, predominantly our constituent councils, in order to deliver those projects across the various areas throughout Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So it's quite a easy little slide on this, but this shows you the steps that we do take through to get through the single assurance framework. So I won't go through that in detail, but it essentially goes from the concept stage, i.e., what are you thinking about? What do you think we need to do? Why do we need to do it? Is it because of a grant, a recommendation that's come forward for whatever other reason? But what do we need to do it? And can we think about what we would like to achieve from this, and then build up as part of that a concept paper? Now, in normal years, most of the concept papers will be considered as part of the medium-term financial plan. So it'd be considered as well working into that going forward, and therefore would be considered by the board. As it goes along, there may be other concepts that do come through. They won't all have to go through to the board. They can be considered through the committees beforehand in order to develop the business cases that go forward. And by that, I mean the committees, I mean the thematic committees, in order to help support some of the thinking into those concept papers as well. So once that initial concept has been approved, it then moves on to developing a more formal business case, which I'm sure that most of you will have seen or have knowledge of through your working with your own constituent councils or through other aspects of the work that you do. So that looks really about the strategic fit of the project that's planned, what the economic case is for it, you know, how does it deliver value for money and the best public value to for the public purse, really, and all that includes any social, environmental impacts of that. There's then the commercial case, demonstrating that the preferred option will result in a viable procurement and a well-structured negotiation between the public sector and any service providers out there. Again, value for money runs through all of this. The financial case about the financial options and any assessments that are in there, and also the future management of finances. So we're not only interested in how much it's going to cost and it's been cost separately, but also how it's going to be funded, and also how it's going to be over the lifetime of that. Because as we know, we need to make sure that profiling is right, because if that's wrong with inflation and other factors, that can affect the deliverability of the project within budget. And also, again, it will support as well the resources that are available to support the procurement of that. There will be a management case as well. That's demonstrate about what should be monitored and evaluated during the delivery of the scheme. And the section split into two main areas to show the timeframes and the milestone expectations for both what we need to do before delivery and during delivery. And then we then look at the exit strategy and the change management. So how you're going to close, how the project's going to be handed over if it needs to be, and how do we continue with that scheme beyond this, and if there's any changes that come out of that. Also, talking of changes, if the project does change for whatever reason in year, so there's been a rescoping or that something's been discoverable that as a project's being done or whatever, then those change requests also will need to come through the relevant approval mechanisms as well to change the scale of the investment. And that will be considered on a cumulative basis. So if the investment is already £1 million, even if the change is only 200, I say only, if the change is £200, it will still go back to the committee, because it's the cumulative impact that has now taken the project from £1 million to 1.2 million, not really to 200,000. So that is critical to that we understand about that cumulative impact of any change going through it. And then if we just look at the single assurance framework, in fact, I don't think there's anything on the previous one, just before I go through that then we'll flow through actually the other bits of that. The main thing there is about getting through to the business case, and then the approval then of that detailed business case and the recommendations that go forward to it. So that's where all the detail is, and that's where the assessment's done when it is moving forward on for approval. So sorry, the single assurance framework and the key roles on that. As you can see, there's a triangle there that sets out about where it all fits in, and where the layers are of approval. This and working through the process for signing off project investments. The investment committee sits just under the combined authority board, linking in with what you saw from one of the earliest slides, in its role for the decision making and the approvals that have been delegated through the board or the decision making that has been delegated from the Combined Authority Board to the Investment Committee and their ability to make those decisions. And as I mentioned, it's in relation to financial spend of more than £1 million, but less than £5 million. Anything beyond that would be a recommendation onto the Combined Authority Board for approval. On the next slide, this is where we looked at, I think you mentioned earlier, Councillor, about the expected flow of decision making and the role of the thematic committees. And again, there's quite a bit of things on here, so obviously share these out with you to go through them in some detail and make them generally more widely available. But if we look there about the role of the thematic committees, as mentioned, that's talking about the direction and the support in developing and proposing the concepts rather than the actual decision on the investment itself. So it's building up that, so you get the support of those thematic committees in building up that concept paper, and then that can then be worked through with the delivery teams, the partner organisations, to build that up then into an initial concept paper or 4 concept papers, which will go to the relevant places for approval. In this case, we're looking going back to the investment panel to go through that. And then we will then, those will be recommended then to carry on through to the formal business case, essentially, that we'll work through. And that is where you'll see the detail of that 5-case business model that I just referred through there. And those business cases will then go on to the relevant approval routes through this. I think it sounds a lot more complicated than it probably is as we're going through this, so please bear with us. Essentially what we're saying is it's a concept paper that looks through and works through with the thematic committees. The concept paper then gets approved and goes forward. Well, hopefully gets approved and go forward. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will. If the ones that do get approved to go forward will then go into a full business case development, and those business cases will then go on to a formal process for approving the investments. And as I say, the ones that will be investment committee will see all of them, but some will be to note if it's under £1 million, 1 to 5 million to make a decision, and 5 million and over is to recommend on to the Combined Authority Board. And finally, the details here set out the planned timeline for the investment committee. So the first investment committee is looking to take place on the 29th of August. We're looking at putting the investment committees in on a monthly basis in order that any investment decisions are able to flow through relatively quickly, though, so that any funding routing its way through to the various delivery partners throughout the region won't be delayed by the fact that the investment committee only meets quarterly. For instance, we need to make sure that flow of funds is going out and we can see the projects being developed out within the region, and that we're seeing that happening on a timely basis. So that's the reason for putting these committee meetings in on a monthly basis. It may be throughout the year that there may be a time when there is no particular investment to consider, for instance, in which case then we'll be able to advise about whether there's a need for other reports that may be going to the committee, or whether the committee might be able to be stood down for that particular meeting. But at the moment, I think it's important to get those in for each month. But as you can see, there's quite a lengthy lead-in time to get some of these approvals through to the committee, and then we will present those as reports through for each of the specific items, whether it's in relation to the shareholdings or commercial activity or in relation to the investments, and then advising the committee there about where decisions need to be made by the committee, working obviously with our colleagues through in democratic services who will be supporting the committee through that arrangement as well. So it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the roles and responsibilities of the committee, just so essentially we don't, as I say, we don't get to that first committee meeting without people understanding about where the flow of the decision making goes and how it's intended to be arranged going forward. So I don't know if there's any particular, yeah, if you stop presenting, that's helpful. If there's any particular questions that anybody has at all in relation to those. Councillor Noaz?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It seems quite fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to this. One is a question, and one is more of a request. The question is, in the flow chart of decision making, it didn't feature the scrutiny committee didn't feature anywhere. Does it go to that at any stage? And the request, more of a request, is I have been having difficulties with the slides. Would you be sending these out after the meeting?
Yeah, I'm happy to share a copy of the slides. There's no problem with that at all. Certainly happy to do that.
Thank you.
To all members and all those that have been able to attend today, and obviously anybody on the invite list as well. And I might even go on the wider members hub. I think that it will be going on the wider members hub as well for all members to see that. So yes, you mentioned about scrutiny committee. Now, scrutiny committee will not be looking at the individual investments, but obviously scrutiny committee has a role in terms of its specific look at the MTFP as a whole. So, for instance, this year, in fact, taking a paper tomorrow, looking at scrutiny for the budget going forward. And during that, we will be looking at any investments that have gone through in terms of revenue or capital throughout the year, to understand how those investments are performing in terms of how that means for setting it up for the medium-term financial plan going forward, but also looking at how we operate from a financial perspective and a delivery perspective as well, as a scrutiny arrangement. But in itself, scrutiny is a part of the approval process for each of the individual investments. It has a role in looking at the investments, probably either unless it's being formed particularly and it has gone pre-scrutiny as a specific item, or it will be done in the overarching look at the financial position of the authority going forward. So that's the main role of scrutiny in relation to this.
Thank you for the clarification.
Are there any other questions or comments at all, or anything that you'd like us to pick up from this? As I said, the first one starting towards the end of August, so there's plenty of time if there are any issues or anything that you wish to pick up. And as I mentioned, I think that the key thing about this is also the link back with other committees such as Audit and Governance Committee, because of their role in that assurance framework, and this feeds into that assurance framework as well in supporting that for Audit and Governance Committee. So part of this will be feeding back and helping to support that through as well, the arrangements. So whilst we might not have the scrutiny built in this, we do have it sort of underpinning it, similar way we have the Audit and Governance sort of underpinning and keeping that overarching viewpoint as well for it. Okay, is there anything else that we can pick up? And as I say, if anything seems you haven't understood at all or want further clarifications, please by all means either contact me directly. I'm Janice Scott, the Exec Director for Resources, which I probably should have mentioned at the outset of all of this, so excuse me for not doing the usual introductions. So yes, I'm happy to pick that up. And oh, I see Robert, sorry Robert, you've got your hand up there.
No, you continue, Janice. I'll just put something in at the end.
No, I think that was about it. Really,
Okay.
actually, Robert, if you can feed back
just-
to me, that'll be fine.
Just to reiterate to members that the session has been recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again at your leisure, and also this will be shared with any of the members that have not attended today. And if Janice, you could send me the final set of slides, I can send them out to all members as well in one email thing along with the recording.
Of course, I can do that, Robert. Thank you very much. Okay.
perhaps along with contact details for, under your name, it says Robert Emery. I doubt if that is your name.
No, that's my colleague sitting to the left of me. Yes, yeah.
So
Yes,
could you
we will.
please,
We'll.
could you please
Well,
forward your contact details and your actual name when Robert sends us the slides, etc.?
Yeah, I'll include Janice's full job designation and email contact details on that email as well.
Yes, if it's any consolation, councillor, you'll probably become very familiar because we'll be coming to every single committee meeting. So yes, that will certainly be becoming better known from that perspective. So yes, happy to do that. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much then, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you. Bye.